I'm John Strum, and this is Real Talk MS. It's June 24th, and we have a lot to talk about. I'm in Philadelphia this week attending a digital tools workshop hosted by the International Progressive MS Alliance. Next week, you'll be hearing my conversations with some of the presenters at this meeting. Today, we're talking about the frustration you might feel when some of the people closest to you don't really seem to get your MS. I'm sure at least some of you are probably spending more time than you'd care to explaining things to well-meaning friends, coworkers, and even family members. Joining me to talk about overcoming the challenge of helping your friends and family understand what an MS diagnosis means and what living with MS is really about is Kris Inman. Kris's wife, Mariah, was diagnosed with MS in 2020. And since then, Kris has been Mariah's care partner and an active member of the MS community. But before we get to my conversation with Kris Inman, there are a few other things that you should know about. As MS care becomes more personalized, the care you receive may be different than the care someone else who's been diagnosed with MS is receiving. And recent research shows that one of the factors a clinician might use to determine the best treatment plan for each of their patients is by looking at how old a patient was when they first experienced MS symptoms. A Canadian research team analyzed data from 699 MS patients who were followed for up to 4 years, providing the researchers with 1,699 observations of their physical and mental health quality of life. 93% of the study participants had been diagnosed with relapsing remitting MS, and the rest had primary progressive MS. The mean age at MS symptom onset was 33.2. About 17% of the participants had symptom onset before the age of 25, and 2.3% of the participants had symptom onset before the age of 18. And as they evaluated all the observational data related to the study participants' physical and mental health quality of life, the researchers discovered that patients who had developed MS at a younger age reported better physical health than those who experienced a later onset of MS. And those patients who developed MS at a younger age, well, they also reported worse mental health than those who experienced a later onset of MS. Over time, physical health scores dropped and mental health scores increased among all the patients in this study. Now, it's been a common practice in research to divide MS patients into two groups, pediatric onset and adult onset of MS. But this study suggests that researchers should look more closely at how patients at different ages within these groups might experience different outcomes. The research team pointed out that other factors, perhaps related to self-management abilities, disease-modifying therapy use, and social participation, might influence how individuals with MS experience their physical and mental health. And the research team concluded that future studies evaluating health-related quality of life over longer periods of time are necessary to provide evidence-based support for mental health quality of life for those people with younger onset of MS, and studies evaluating specific aspects of physical health among people with older onset MS will be important to maximize physical functioning as people age with MS. Now, if you'd like to review the details of this study, you'll find a link in today's show notes. Research shows that globally, about 70% of the people with MS stop working within 10 years of their diagnosis. In the United States, it's been shown that about half the people with MS stop working within the first 5 years of diagnosis. Now, whichever of these numbers you want to focus on, an individual who leaves the workforce in their 30s, 40s, or 50s is also going to face added financial hardship. Looking at ways to improve that scenario and keep people with MS at their jobs longer starts with better understanding the kinds of work-related challenges people with MS face. So the MS Society in the UK collaborated with the Work Foundation at Lancaster University to study what life at work and at home is like for people with MS. And taking results from a 2024 online survey of 1,125 people with MS in England, Scotland, and Wales, they've issued a report titled No Compromises: Supporting People with MS to Thrive in and Out of Work. The survey showed that half of the MS patients in the UK who work feel that they've compromised their health by staying in jobs that didn't fully support their needs. Additionally, nearly a third of the people with MS who were still in the workforce found themselves in roles below their skill levels, perhaps indicating that opportunities for advancement weren't available to them. 2/3 of the survey respondents were between the ages of 45 and 64. 75% were women, and 62% of the female respondents were employed, while just 44% of the male respondents were employed. 96% of the survey participants said their MS affected their ability to work in some way. Survey participants reported that their MS symptoms could interfere with commuting to work, navigating workplace environments, and completing at least some work-related tasks. Now, among the survey respondents who were working, 26% reported having unmanageable workloads. 21% reported inflexible schedules, and 21% pointed to a lack of workplace adaptations. 50% of the survey respondents indicated that they had left a job due to factors related to their MS, and 50% of the survey respondents said they stayed in jobs that compromised their health out of financial necessity. More encouragingly, 79% of the survey respondents indicated that their employers at least tried to support them, while 45% said their employers didn't know enough about MS, which suggests that the process of disclosing your MS to your employer ought to include a conversation about what MS is and how it impacts you. Otherwise, their level of understanding isn't likely to change, and that can work against you if and when you request any accommodation be made for you. The report, jointly issued by the Work Foundation and the MS Society in the UK, is available online, and if you'd like to download a copy, you'll find a link in today's show notes. Biotech company Neurogenesis has been awarded a grant from the National MS Society's Fast Forward program to support the company's Phase 2b clinical trial to validate the efficacy of Neurogenesis NG01 cellular therapy platform for people with secondary progressive MS. The Neurogenesis NG cell platform uses a patient's own stem cells, which are extracted and enhanced through the company's proprietary process to become remyelinating and neuroregenerative cells. These enhanced stem cells are injected directly into the spinal cord, where they home in on inflamed lesion sites in the brain and spinal cord. The stem cells remain active at these damaged areas in the central nervous system for up to 3 months, generating large amounts of remyelinating, neuronal growth, and repair proteins. Neurogenesis NG01 is being investigated for treating both progressive MS and ALS. And an earlier Phase 2 randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial among 48 people with progressive MS showed that trial participants who were treated with NG01 experienced improvement in their EDSS score compared to the trial participants who were given a placebo. They also showed a shorter time in their 25-foot walk, improvement in the 9-hole peg test, and a reduction in brain lesions. And about 60% of the trial participants who were treated with NG01 showed no evidence of disease activity in the 1-year study. The funding from the MS Society's Fast Forward program will support the launch of a Phase 2 clinical trial for NG01 in the United States. While the majority of the MS Society's research investment is directed at academic research, the Fast Forward program supports early-stage commercial organizations engaged in developing new therapies and diagnostic tools for MS. Since 2009, Fast Forward has invested $26.3 million in commercial MS research, including 43 projects in the biotech and pharmaceutical sector and 13 commercial projects at academic institutions. Remyelination and neuroregeneration mean restoring function that's been lost to MS, and it's encouraging to continue to see the progress that's being made in this arena. We'll continue to keep you posted on Neurogenesis NG01, along with all the other ongoing research efforts that are focused on repairing the damage to nerve cells caused by MS. If you'd like to learn more about Neurogenesis and NG01, you'll find a link to the company's website in today's show notes. The Portable Neuromodulation Stimulator is an FDA-approved, non-invasive medical device that's used in combination with physical therapy to reduce walking problems for people with MS. And because Portable Neuromodulation Stimulator is such a mouthful, the device is more commonly known by the acronym PONS. The PONS device consists of a mouthpiece and a controller that's worn around the neck. The mouthpiece is placed on the tongue and delivers mild electrical signals that are transmitted to the brain through two major cranial nerves in the tongue, the trigeminal and facial nerves. It's believed that the electrical signals delivered through the PONS device create a flow of stimuli from the tongue to the brain, and these stimuli promote neuroplasticity. That's the brain's ability to rewire itself. According to Helios Medical Technologies, the developer of the PONS device, the electrical impulses to the tongue that are produced by their device are not harmful. Helios points out that patients might perceive them as buzzing or a champagne bubble sensation. The device is used during 20-minute physical therapy sessions over a short-term period. Data from 2 clinical trials showed that 2 weeks of in-clinic treatment supervised by a certified physical therapist, followed by 12 weeks of unsupervised therapy at home, significantly improved walking and balance among people with mild to moderate MS symptoms who were experiencing challenges walking. A further study showed that these benefits were sustained for up to 6 months for those study participants who most closely stuck to the treatment protocol during those 12 weeks of at-home unsupervised therapy. The PONS device is not inexpensive, but the device is covered by Medicare and Medicaid. It's available to veterans through the Department of Veterans Affairs. And last week, Aetna Healthcare announced that it was covering the PONS device even if someone's prescribing clinician was not in Aetna's network. Now, this makes Aetna the third major insurer in the United States to approve reimbursement for the PONS device, joining Anthem and United Healthcare. Of course, individual out-of-pocket costs are dependent upon a patient's deductible and all the other details insurance companies like to remind us to consider. If you'd like to learn more about the PONS device, Helios Medical Technologies has created a dedicated website for the device, and you'll find that link in today's show notes. Whether you're thinking about a new way to manage an MS symptom, or you're wondering about some other aspect of your MS treatment game plan, it always helps to have a sounding board to bounce ideas off of. That person might be a partner, spouse, friend, neighbor, or other family member. In a moment, we'll meet Kris Inman, who's joining me to discuss some of the finer points of being an effective MS care partner. If you're living with MS, you're probably spending more time than you'd care to explaining things to well-meaning family members, friends, coworkers. The truth is that many people with MS live with the frustration of feeling misunderstood by some of the people who are closest to them. Joining me to talk about overcoming the challenge of helping your friends and family understand what an MS diagnosis means and what living with MS is really about is Kris Inman. Kris's wife, Mariah, was diagnosed with MS in 2020, and since then, Kris has become an active member of the MS community. Welcome to the podcast, Kris.
John, thanks so much for having me. It is a true honor to be here with you.
So we should probably start with some introductions. Please tell us about yourself and Mariah.
Yeah, I'm a long time now retired 911 professional. I worked in the 911 industry since 1994, retired in 2023, and I'm now a consultant. I travel around the country teaching, training 911 dispatchers. Mariah is an RN. She works for the local health department. She's a disease detective, has the coolest job you can imagine. We met in commercial radio, working at a small radio station in a small town. It was far less glamorous than it sounds. Didn't get much out of that career, but I did get Mariah. We've been together for over 30 years. We will be married for 28 years this year. She is everything to me. And between she and my cats, we have a perfect little family life.
So what led up to Mariah being diagnosed with MS?
Right before, several months before the official diagnosis, we had purchased around Christmas time a Peloton bike. And we both became gung-ho about that Peloton bike, as Peloton users tend to do. Do not, John, get me started talking about Peloton, or we'll spend the whole time talking about it. In any event, after many of her rides, she started noticing that she was dizzy or that she was numb in her feet and legs. And it was very unusual, and it continued to exacerbate. And she thought, of course, as you do, that maybe it was a pinched nerve. Over the course of time, multiple doctor's visits, culminating, as it often does for MS folks, in a spinal tap. The unfortunate diagnosis was made that she had MS. So that Peloton bike is what let us know that that MS diagnosis was what she had. A lot of folks, of course, go for many, many years misdiagnosed or not even diagnosed. So we've come to terms with the idea that we were fortunate to get her diagnosed pretty quickly.
In the days that followed that diagnosis, how did you and Mariah each process her being diagnosed with MS?
I can tell you, John, that she, as a nurse and as a caregiver, something she's done for a living. Of course, the diagnosis hit her like a hammer blow, as it does, but she came to terms with it pretty quickly, which is not to say she hasn't struggled with it since, as they all tend to do. Anybody that's diagnosed with something like MS has their struggles. But Mariah came around pretty quickly and understood and certainly told me in so many words, life put you on a different road. It's not always the one you plan to drive down. I'm on a different one now. I'm still driving. It's all good. But me, on the other hand, really struggled with it. I found myself drinking more. I found myself withdrawing more because I'm a fixer. I fix things that are wrong with my wife. If she's got a problem, I swoop in and fix it. She doesn't always appreciate that. Sometimes I just need to shut up and listen. But that's my thing. And here was something that landed in our collective laps that I couldn't fix. I couldn't even impact it in any way. And I felt useless, worthless. I didn't know what to do with myself. So funnily enough, that diagnosis, hard for both of us. It's been Mariah helping me adjust to it in many ways, more than it's been me helping her. So I want to get that message out there that if you have someone that you love with MS and you're feeling that way that I felt, I think that's pretty normal because you can't help, but you need to get through that and get over that quickly because you can help. Just may not feel like the same ways that you used to, but you can, and you need to get on that path and start doing it, which is what I did.
I think what you just described, well, certainly it described my initial experience as well as my wife's caregiver. And it's a funny thing, MS impacts women almost 3 times more than it impacts men. And that means in many cases, the care partner, the caregiver, is going to be a man. And we are the fixers. We are the ones who want to say, well, just tell me what the problem is and I'll handle it. Something women perhaps don't particularly enjoy about our personalities, but there it is, right? We like to do that stuff. And if you don't know why, we'll be happy to sit down and mansplain it to you.
Yes, we will.
But it is something you have to sort of unlearn or at least revise in terms of what your role is going to be, isn't it?
It really is, John. You can still provide tremendous help and love and care to your loved one with MS or with any chronic disease. And we're talking about MS here, obviously. And the way you do that is not by overwhelming them with the need to fix. And I had to learn, and it has not been an easy lesson for me. You've probably already determined I'm a little extroverted. Sometimes it's hard for me to shut the heck up. But I learned that doing that very thing and listening and just letting her know that I'm there if she needs me is every bit as helpful, dare I say more so, than my old I'm going to fix it days were. And as you mentioned, John, I'm not sure she ever enjoyed that, but I've had to learn sort of a new role, and that is to let her go through what she's going through. Sometimes she just needs a bad day or two or three, and to just be there for her and listen. And that's how I've started to learn this new role. And that's how I've started to serve in this way for her. And then it's a way that really, really helps her. And she would tell you that very thing.
While we're talking about roles, do you consider yourself Mariah's caregiver?
I do, to a degree. I think of myself as more of a partner in this new path that we're on together. As I mentioned, oftentimes it's Mariah at the wheel doing the caregiving for me, which sounds kind of silly. She's the one with the MS diagnosis, but she's had to pick me up by my figurative lapels more than a few times and tell me, Christopher, I'm okay. I'm on a different path. I don't particularly want to be on this path, but I don't have any choice. And I'm not going to stop driving. We're still going down this path together, you and I. So what I can't have you doing is freaking out over here in the passenger seat or constantly talking about getting back on the other road or fixing the road we're on. We're in this together. So Mariah and I have kind of come to we're co-piloting this sucker. I mean, I say that, well, obviously with the understanding that she's the one going through it, and she is, and it's a whole thing. But I'm right there with her, and I'm going to do everything I can to help her through that by being as steady as I possibly can, by learning not to try and fix it, and to just be that steady co-pilot that she needs. That's how our partnership with MS works.
After someone's diagnosed with MS and they have kind of processed that, one of the first things that they find themselves having to do is explain it to others. What was the experience of sharing Mariah's diagnosis with her family like?
It was hard because you knew that her family was going to react in largely the same way that I did. You don't know much about MS. You know, I mentioned I worked in the 911 industry for many years. MS is like 911 in that you've heard of it, but you're not sure you really understand it. If you ask a regular person on the street, tell me how 911 works, they probably don't know. It's not anything they've really thought of. And MS is similar to that. So when people hear MS, they immediately think wheelchair. They immediately think they're never going to be able to be the same person they once were. And they just don't have that understanding. I didn't either. And neither did Mariah to a degree. So of course, her family's reaction was severe and scared. There was panic there. What do we do? How do we fix this? Oh my gosh. But as they started to learn and get more educated, and bless the MS Society for the education materials that they provide and helping people who don't know anything about the disease learn more about the disease, you know, it's something that while we don't want it, we can work with it. It's not the reality that any of us want, but it's a reality that we can all get on board with and just find a way forward together. And that's what her family ultimately did alongside us. They continue to do that. Their support has been invaluable. Same with our friends. They're right there with a figurative hand on our backs. We can feel it all the time. So I think that sharing is very important. That support system for folks with MS and caregivers, extraordinarily important to know you're not alone. And her family is a big part of that.
What do you see as the trickiest part of dealing with well-meaning family members and friends who don't always know what to do or what to say? Sometimes they even end up saying the wrong thing.
I mean, you have to come to the understanding, and Mariah is very good about this, that they mean well. And oftentimes for people who love you, they don't know what to say. They don't know how to say it. They only know that they want to say something positive to help your outlook, to help the way you feel. Doesn't always work that way. We've talked often about how MS is a fingerprint disease and that it's pretty significantly different for everyone. And because of that, when someone comes along with an offer of support saying something along the lines of, well, my cousin's friend's brother had it, and for 40 years, he was able to walk 18 holes and play golf, so it won't be that bad for you. Well, that's initially infuriating to folks with MS who hear that kind of stuff, along with crazy cures. You know, if you eat half a potato that's been in the sun on Tuesday and Thursdays, but only in July, and only if it's partly cloudy, your MS will be cured, that kind of stuff. So she got a lot of that from a lot of friends and loved ones. And at first it was very irritating. And I'm not going to suggest to you now that she sits and loves it when that happens, but there's love there when people do that. And she's come, as I have, to the realization that that's just people's way of trying to help, trying to support you. So to folks who are just overwhelming those that they love with MS with that kind of stuff, we appreciate that effort, believe me, but back off a little bit. It's the advice I would give on that.
I'm curious, how long after Mariah was diagnosed did you connect with the National MS Society?
So glad you asked that question, John, because right afterward, I was, as I mentioned here, a basket case. I was a mess. I didn't know what to do. I just knew that I had to do something. I didn't know what. So I reached out. I'll never forget it. I was at work at the time, and I, through tears, found the MS Society's website, found an 800 number at random, and called it. And just it was like a therapy session. I feel so bad for whoever took that call. I don't know who it was, but I just was overwhelmed and I was crying. And there got to be something I can do, please. If you have events, if you need somebody to sweep up after, if you need somebody to mow yards, whatever it is, I want to be that guy. And bless whoever this lady was that I talked to. She couldn't have been sweeter. She said, Kris, there's a lot of stuff there locally you can help with. I'm going to connect you with some people. They're going to reach out to you. And they did almost right away. And that has grown over the years now from just being an MS activist to being an ambassador for the society. I still don't get to do as much as I'd love to do because I'm so busy, but I get to do significantly more. So just reaching out to the society on a whim and just hoping there was something they could use me for. The culmination of that is being here with you today, John, and continuing to get to do things to help folks with MS. And that's what it's all about for me. I got to know I'm doing something.
And I'm glad you mentioned some of the ways somebody can get involved as an MS activist, as an MS ambassador. What advice would you share with someone who's looking for ways to become more involved with the MS community?
Reach out to somebody. One of the things that MS tends to do to all of us is, certainly initially, it makes us feel like we're on an island. We're by ourselves. There's not anybody out there that can understand. There's no one out there that can support this. This is a unicorn, and we're going through it by ourselves. It's so not that. And of the many wonderful things about the MS Society is they are the gateway to this incredible community of folks who have MS, who support people with MS. So I would encourage anyone going through this, feeling the way I just described, reach out to the society, reach out to the community. I promise you there are things going on relatively close to you, if not in your own backyard, that you can be a part of. And beyond that, when you start getting to know these people and you start understanding that their feelings are yours, their problems are yours, their issues are yours, you're not alone in it anymore. And when you're not alone in something like this, it changes everything. So reach out. Don't be afraid. Find a number, find a link, find an email address, make yourself available. I promise you someone can use that help and they're there to support you.
Imagine this for a moment. Someone listening to our conversation has just been diagnosed with MS. What are the first 3 things you'd recommend that they should think about?
Number 1, take a breath. Take a couple breaths. I'm also a yoga instructor, so I'm a big believer in breathing into stress. Take some breaths. Give yourself a minute, because our initial reaction to anything along these lines is panic and all the things. Avoid WebMD, all of those things. Take a couple breaths. Number 2, you're still you. You're absolutely still you, the same you've always been. While it feels like MS completely changes who you are, it doesn't. You're still the exact same person you always were, the same hopes, the same dreams, the same possibilities you always had. I promise you that's the case. And number 3, you are not alone in this. We have got your back. We're out here. We're waiting to help you. We're waiting to become a part of your life, as much of your life as you care to let us be a part of. If that means we see you once in a blue moon for an event, awesome. If that means we visit all the time, we text, we call, whatever it is, you are not alone in this. So while it feels like an MS diagnosis is a reversal of all the things that are inherently you, that's just not true. Hang in there. You've got this. People around you will make sure that you do. You are not alone.
Kris Inman, thanks for all you do for Mariah and the MS community. Thanks for leading by example. And thanks so much for talking with me today.
John, the pleasure is completely mine. And I just have to say, I look forward to the day when none of us ever have to see each other ever again, because we have found a cure.
I share that, buddy. I share that with you. That's going to wrap up this episode of Real Talk MS. Real Talk MS is powered by the National MS Society. And you can share this episode of the podcast by letting your friends or family members know that all they have to do is point their web browser at realtalkms.com/408. You'll find that link in today's show notes, so you can easily copy and paste it right into an email or a text. And if you have a minute, I hope you'll visit the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store and download the free Real Talk MS app for your iOS or Android smartphone or tablet. It's the best way for us to stay connected. The app will automatically download the latest episode of Real Talk MS. You'll be able to access any of our past episodes. You'll be able to save your favorite episodes. And it's a great way for me to share bonus content with you. The app is free, so I hope you'll download it today. I'm John Strum. Thanks for listening. Stay safe and make healthy choices.